Studios. This is Spiritual Warfare. It's Warrior's Way, and our warrior this week is Jen Strygulec. Say good morning.
Good morning.
All right, before we get to her, if this is your first time and you're struggling with mental health or drug rehabilitation or have family members that do, please go to UCANMichigan.com, click on Struggling, punch in the information. We help somebody get to you in 24 hours or less to help them out. If it's just in general, because everything costs so much right now, please go to spiritualwarfareunit.com, click on Struggling, and you can get food or clothes or baby formula or mental health or any of the other things that someone might be struggling with for free or next to free, and help us help others help you. All right. One of our great partners, one of my more favorite partners, is the Strygulecs, and they have the Fenton Center of Hope, and that's you.
Yes.
So give us a brief outline of why you started this, and then I want to get your story.
All right. Well, 7 years ago, we started a food pantry and baby closet out of our church just to meet a need that we saw in the community. And we ended up becoming a nonprofit. Well, actually, 7 years ago, we became a nonprofit so that we could help more people. We realized that we were just not doing people justice by just giving them food or diapers.
What do you mean?
We were not changing lives.
Oh, justice as in like helping them help themselves be better. So once you saw the need for food, you saw other needs.
Right. We knew that people needed relationship.
Yeah.
They needed education, and that was going to take longer and more than just stopping in to get.
And you started adding some stuff, right?
Right.
I don't really want to blow the end of this, but you guys do a bunch.
We do. We have mentors. We do life skill classes. We have our food pantry, which is a free choice food pantry. So that means people come in, grab a cart, and shop for the things that they prefer for their families rather than someone just giving them a random box of food.
Right. And I love that. I love that people can go in and shop like they're in a store.
Right. Dignity.
Right.
And then our baby closet program, the moms do receive education. We have an education program that we subscribe to, so they either can watch the lesson with their mentor or they can do it at home by themselves. We just text or email it. And then after they do their lesson each month, and there's over 200 topics, not just on parenting, but everything that I learn something every time I listen to a new lesson. And then they meet with the same mentor. So it's 5 years that someone's in someone's life. And they get to shop and everything, like cribs.
All right, so that's the end, and we're not, like I said, I don't want to blow the thunder. But at the beginning, we interviewed Bob a while back, and we got his story, but we've got to get yours. So where did you come from? Where'd you grow up? Where'd you start off?
I grew up in Goodrich until I was 15, then we moved to Grand Blanc. I was raised by amazing parents that loved the Lord, and we always had someone living with us. Literally. Like
what does that mean? Like staying?
Foster kids, or one time we went to Genesee Valley Mall shopping. We did that every Saturday. And my dad saw this man sitting on the ground. He just looked like a homeless guy, but he actually had been previously an owner of a business in Grand Blanc and just fallen on hard times, and they brought him home with us, and he lived with us.
What was that like? Like you didn't get jealous? Or, I mean, as a kid, those are my parents and my family. Like
we had times, like my brother and I both, different situations would bother us. I mean, like that man, my brother lost his bedroom. My parents were not wealthy. We didn't have a huge house. But that's just how they lived. They lived generously. They lived just to serve God by just loving people.
Well, what did they do? Like for what?
My dad was a teacher.
Okay.
And my mom, when we were really little, she did hair.
Okay.
And she had a hair room in our house when we were, she worked at a salon.
Hair room, outstanding.
Yep, and we just grew up with people around our house all
So
the time.
you just grow up in a family of people that just help people that were down on their luck?
Yeah.
Wow, all right. So, and you did this till you were 15. What was growing up in Goodrich like?
I loved Goodrich.
Yeah?
Yeah, I loved Goodrich. And then when I was 15, we moved to Grand Blanc, and it was awful because...
Wait, hold on. Why did you move? What happened?
Then my parents bought a house in Grand Blanc that they just loved this house. And we really thought that we would be able to stay in Goodrich schools, but we couldn't. They changed the laws that year. There wasn't school of choice.
That year?
Yeah.
No kidding.
So, but now that I'm, this old...
all right, hold on. What made it... You said awful. Like, what made it...
I left a school with 600 kids in the whole school.
Okay.
My class at Grand Blanc was 600 kids.
Oh, so it was a culture shock. Oh, and at 15, that time of life. Okay.
It was tough. But now, like seriously, I have friends now that I had at Grand Blanc that as a kid, you're like, my life sucks. I don't have friends.
Right.
But I had a lot of friends.
So were you like a nerd? Were you?
I liked everybody.
Yeah.
Like I was. And
you actually got along with everybody?
I got along with everybody.
No kidding. Like the jocks and
the nerds, the burnouts, the everybody.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. I have a question. How do you do that? Because normally people are in their lane.
Well, probably because I didn't know where I fit in at that school. And honestly, even at Goodrich, I don't remember there being a lot of the jocks or the popular people. I just was friends with everybody.
So you just a person that didn't have a side. You just got along with everybody.
Yeah.
See, that's unique to you. I find that awesome. A lot of people, they stay in their lane. I know I did. All right. So that means you went to Grand Blanc and then you graduated when?
I graduated in 1986.
1986. And after high school, you did what?
I switched majors in colleges 3 times.
Wait a minute. Yeah. What college did you go to?
I went to Mott and I went to Eastern.
Okay, so hold on. So Mott first?
Mott first.
Was that just to get your basics out of the way?
Yeah.
And it was cheaper?
Yeah.
All right. Did you get that done?
I did.
Okay, so were you there 2 years?
Yes.
Okay, so till 1988. Mm-hmm. So you were staying at home?
I lived at home. I wanted to be a social worker.
That makes sense.
My parents told me no. And they were just like, no, like you'll never make any money in that.
Yeah.
And so then I went for education, got my associate's degree in early childhood education.
Was that at Mott?
At Mott.
And then you transferred?
And then it came time, like at the end of your associate's degree, you actually work with children in a preschool. And I did not enjoy it.
Yeah.
And so then
I've been going to school for this for 2 years, and I don't like it.
But I met a guy at work that was at that time the director of Whaley Children's Home.
Okay.
And so he said, you can come do like your internship with us.
Okay.
So I did that. Mm-hmm. And that broke my heart. That like really, really broke my heart. The kids were it was just sad. I tried to get my parents to adopt a kid from there, and they tried, they pursued it.
No kidding.
Yeah, that's just, who we are. But even then, I was just telling someone this experience that I looked at those kids that were so broken and I thought they're going to continue these cycles even. They're always going to, even if they're okay or adopted or whatever, unless we are like reaching the whole family.
Right.
And where they came from, there's always going to be brokenness.
So even back then, your mind was like, how can we encompass the whole thing? All right, so this put you at 1988, and then you said Eastern, right?
Yeah, I went to Eastern.
Why Eastern?
Because I thought that I had a friend that went to Eastern, and I commuted. I couldn't afford.
That's a hike.
I worked like 3 jobs and went to Eastern, and I was going to go for special education.
Well, what 3 jobs did you work?
I worked from the time I was 17. My favorite job that I had in my entire life was at the North Bank Center, downtown Flint. So in 1986, 85, 86, they were renovating the whole North Bank Center. Mm-hmm. And my best friend in high school, her mom was the property manager. So we got jobs there at 17. We worked at the health club.
Nice.
And I ended up being, like, by the time I was in my early 20s, I was the manager of the health club.
Wow.
And I worked they had a floor called the executive suite.
Nice.
So that's where everybody shared secretaries. They shared a receptionist.
Yeah.
So I was a receptionist there and answered all the phones.
Nice.
And they had a restaurant upstairs and they had catering.
Wow.
They did catering in the ballroom. And so,
catering in the ballroom.
So I worked like parties and wedding receptions.
How cool were you? That had to be fun.
Those years were really fun. I really did enjoy that. And then when I became the manager, they said they fired a bunch of people, and so I quit. And so they said they got a new property manager, and she said, "Do you want to be the manager? And you have to hire staff." So
Wait a minute. Why did you quit?
There was like a lot of craziness going on.
Was it like a management thing?
No, like the people that worked there. There was just a lot of. It was a different lifestyle. It was
okay.
Like a lot.
There's a story I'm going to let go there.
Yeah, let it go.
I'm going to let that go.
There were adults that were having a lot of fun in the building.
I gotcha.
But my brother came and was my assistant manager.
So, like, how many times a year did you do a party for the ball? Was it like a weekly thing or something?
Well, it's like wedding receptions. So I just worked.
So you're just getting great food. And
I was a terrible waitress. I even waitressed. I got really good tips, but I was not a very good waitress. I worked at the restaurant upstairs.
Wow, so you were bad at your job and got paid well.
Yeah.
Good to know.
Yeah.
All right. So you're what were the other 2 jobs?
So that I was like a nanny for a family. So I'd go to their house in the morning and
even though you hated working with kids.
Well, I liked those kids. I just didn't like the whole class. I like 30 kids.
Yeah.
And we always worked. My brother and I both just always worked a lot of jobs.
All right. Now you older or younger than your brother?
I'm older, 3 years older.
That makes sense. All right. So then you go to Eastern in 88.
Yep. And I wanted to do special education, and it was just really hard to go back and forth.
That's a hike.
It is a hike.
Yeah.
And I didn't last. I was like 2 semesters and I was done. And I don't like school. I don't really I never have enjoyed school.
Right.
But I wanted, my dad was such a great teacher and it was a passion. So I thought I want to be like him. When I was in 9th grade, my mom got a job at an interior design studio. And she's got this raw talent that's crazy. And so she's been a designer since then.
Wow.
And so then North Bank Center closed. They sold to a company and, U of M ended up buying it, but they closed the health club. And so I lost my job. At that time, I lived in an apartment with a girlfriend, my friend from church. And so I had to move back home. I was 23.
Nice.
I had just broken up with my boyfriend that I'd had since I was 15.
Wow.
It was like a life crisis.
All right.
Time.
That's a great place to take a break at a life crisis. If you haven't gone to Spiritual Warfare Unit and like, share, and subscribe, please do that. Sit tight. We'll be right back. All right. Welcome back to the Warrior's Way. Our warrior this week is Jen Strygulec, and she's from the Fenton Center of Hope, FentonCenterofHope.org, if you want to check out what she's doing while we're sitting here yakking about it. So you had just had a crisis and 2 semesters at Eastern, and then broke up with your boyfriend of 6 years?
About 8 years, yeah.
8 years? Oh, boy. So sounds like a transition period.
So I had to move back home. I didn't have a job. And I was going to Baker. Then I thought, well, I'll just go for interior design because that's
what my mom did.
That's what my mom does. And I did enjoy interior design school.
Okay.
And that's what I did before we started the Center of Hope. But my dad told me one morning, my mom was out of town, and my dad said, hey, they're having interviews. He just saw on the news. They're having interviews for Walmart. They were building the first Walmart on Road.
Okay.
And he said, you should go because interviews are at Baker College. And I just said, I am not working at Walmart. And
wow.
He said, I'm not proud of that. And he said, you are not above working at Walmart.
There you go.
And you will come back with some evidence that you had an interview today.
Wow.
So I went to this interview and met this guy from Missouri who was the new manager. And I just loved him. Like, we just hit it off. He was from like the same little town in Missouri that we have family in.
Oh, okay.
And he said, so what have you been doing all these years? So I told him a huge part of what I did at North Bank Center was community involvement.
Yeah.
So I would go to all of the meetings for the Chamber of Commerce and for the Visitors Bureau, and we were part of the CRIM. We were part of the Heart Association, and I got to do all those things.
Yeah.
So that was really fun. And I said, that was like what I liked the best about that job. And he said, well, we're hiring a community involvement coordinator. And not everyone in Genesee County is excited that a Walmart is coming because they're union.
Yeah.
So whatever money you guys raise during, you just have fundraisers and do things, and we're going to give you this much money. You get to plan the grand opening.
Wow.
And I said, this sounds amazing.
That doesn't even sound like a job. That sounds like a good time, right?
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And so I started that job the week after Christmas, and I'd gone away for Christmas with my family, came back, went to work for the first day, and was so excited to work with this guy. And his wife was so sweet. And they introduced me. He said, well, we had to bring in a co-manager. We've had some complications. And he will be your boss now. And it was Bob Strygulec.
No.
And I was like, I don't want to work with this guy. And he did not speak to me.
He's not a talker.
He's not a talker.
Well, I mean, him and I talk, but.
Well.
Yeah, him and I get along really great.
Very well.
Very rational human beings.
But
so what was your first interaction with him?
Well, he didn't speak to me. I didn't think he liked me. And
he was just like, hey, how are you? And then
we had to share this tiny little office, and he just did not. I never ever thought he was interested in me. And then a couple months into working together, I mean, we're in a tiny office, and I'm a talker.
Yeah.
So I thought that I knew everything about him. And this lady one day, she was hitting on him, but she said, so do you have any kids? And I remember like rolling my eyes and thinking, he doesn't have any kids. Like, what?
Yeah.
He was like, yeah, I have a little boy too. And I was like, what? Like, we went back to our office. I said, you have a child? And he told me that he had a wife and she passed away. And it hadn't been, that long. So I thought, well, he's just sad. And he's not from here. And that's why he leaves. As soon as his shift's over, he would leave his
So
kids.
you just extrapolated that out. But the truth was...
Well, then one day they had actually at Walmart, we had these team meetings every morning. And the store wasn't open yet. But they had this team meeting and they said, listen, there's a lawsuit going on right now. And it had been on Good Morning America. And they said management is not allowed to date like anyone. And there was lots of goofing around going on.
Fraternization.
Yeah. And so they brought all these assistant managers that were young and they were from out of state. And so they said, no one's allowed to date. And so that night I got home from work and my dad, the phone rang and my dad's like, Bob from work's on the phone. And so I got on the phone. This is before cell phones, And so I said, yeah. And he said, hey, I was wondering if you'd like to go to dinner or go get something to eat. And I said, what? And he said, do you want to go get something to eat? Or I said, what do you mean?
So let me get this right. So Bob, who is a very quiet person, doesn't tell you anything. And then you're like, this must be the reason he does it. And then on a Tuesday, he's like, hey,
it was a weekday. It was like in the middle of the week.
You want to go get something to eat? Did you say yes?
Well, I said, is this a trick? And
a
said,
trick?
What do you mean?
Oh, to see if you would fraternize with the health to get you fired.
Said, what do you mean, a trick? And I said, are you trying to trick me, like to see if I'll do this? And he said, no. He said, I would get fired before you would get fired.
Wow.
And I was like, I still, to this day, I'm like, why that day did he ask me out?
Yeah.
But we went out, and so we met in January.
Okay.
I don't even remember when our first date was. I think like March. In April, he proposed to me.
Wow.
And then I thought he was being transferred. We thought he was going to be transferred.
How did that work? Wait, you can't just say.
No, we had to keep it secret. So it was like a complete secret.
And you said, like after a couple months, you're like, this is like, how did you know?
Oh, my word. I just knew.
How did you know, though?
I don't know. And my mom kept saying, when
your parents had to be freaking out.
They said that I talked about him a lot. And I would she'd say, do you like him? I was like, no, he's just a really nice guy. So one day before the store was open, my parents showed up at the store. Yeah. And people weren't allowed to come in, but here comes my parents. Yeah. And she said, we just wanted to say hi and see the store. And so where's this Bob?
Where's this Bob?
They met Bob, and she said that they got in the car, and my mom said, no, like he's not like anyone she's ever dated. He really is just a nice guy. Yeah. But I just knew. And I fell in love.
After 3 months.
Yeah.
Wow. So how did he do it?
I don't even remember. It wasn't.
You don't know how he proposed. He's like,
well, he didn't live here, and he had a little boy. There was a lot of pieces.
Yeah, but how did he propose? Like,
I don't really.
Did he take you out to dinner?
No.
Did he have you over?
I was just at his
So you're
house
like watching a movie, and like out of curiosity, do you want to like spend the rest of your life with me?
He had gotten a ring.
Oh, good.
And he just said, would you marry me? And, I love you. Would you marry me? And I was like, okay.
All right. So this makes you how old when this happens? 24?
I was 24.
24. Wow.
Yeah.
All right. So you're 24. You're living at home.
Yeah. So he was, Stephen, his little boy, was in Alma with his mom and dad, with Bob's mom and dad. And so he never got to see him. He was living in Owasso at that time, renting something just in Owasso. He was halfway. So I was going to Baker and hated it, because it was school. Right. And I knew that I was going to have to quit my job, but I didn't want to quit until the grand opening because it was amazing. The president of Walmart came. I planned a good party, and it was good.
It was a good party.
So the day after the grand opening, Bob just said, you have to quit. Like, we have to tell Bobby, this guy that I just adored, our boss. Yeah. And so Bob told me what to say. So I went in his office and I just said, I need to talk to you. And he said, okay. And I was trying not to cry because I liked that job a lot. Yeah. And I said, I have to quit. And he said, what? Yeah. And I said, I have to quit. And he said, why? You love this job. And I said, I have to quit to pursue a relationship with Bob. And he said, Bob who? And I said,
Bob who?
Bob Strygulec. And he said, what? He said, you like Bob? And I said, yes. And that by this time we're engaged. And he said, does he know? And I said, yes, he knows.
Does he know?
I said, we're engaged. And he said, don't tell me that. I don't want to know. I can't know that. Yeah. So I transferred to Sam's.
Does he know?
Yeah. I transferred to Sam's for a minute. Yeah. And just didn't, I just didn't enjoy it. And Bob was struggling with his son being away. Yep. And so Stephen would come stay with me at my mom and dad's house. Aww. And I was still going to school at that time. But there was such a, he got to bond with our whole family.
That's cool. Now, what were you going to school for during this time?
Interior design.
Okay. So you lost your job for your husband?
Yeah.
Wow.
I did.
All right. And what did you do for like? So you're staying at your parents must have been thrilled.
You know what? They loved him. They fell in love with that little boy, and they
So you married in June, you said?
September.
Oh, September. Okay. And what happened? What happened then?
Well, Bob quit Walmart,
Yeah.
and he.
Well, why did he quit Walmart? Because he didn't have to since you quit.
Our first week that we were married, he worked he was working insane hours, and it was not conducive for a family at that time.
All right. This is a great. We got to go to a second break already. All right. So we're going to go ahead and go to our break. Please check out FentonCenterHope.org. Like, share, and subscribe. Help us help others. Sit tight. We'll be right back. All right. Welcome back to the Warrior's Way. Our warrior this week is Jen Strygulec, and she was just telling us her story of how she had gotten married. Now, you had quit your job, and did you finish your degree?
I did not.
So you finished. So getting married, and you took his boy in, which was sweet, and he got to meet the family. So the job and school both stopped for the marriage.
Well, that job, but I did continue to work interior design with my mom.
All right.
So I worked for her business.
Okay. So you get married, and what was that like? I mean, heaven and bliss with old Bob?
Yeah, I really thought because of my whole preschool experience that that would I thought this is going to be easy, like being the mom.
Yeah.
And that I'm kind of independent, so I thought being married would be hard.
Yeah.
But actually being a mom was hard that first year to a toddler.
Really?
And so the marriage part was fine. I mean, we went on a honeymoon, and we were never really alone a lot because we had a toddler.
Yeah.
And we went to Jamaica, and my mom and dad kept Steven. And my mom called me one day just to check in and tell us how Steven was doing. And she said, "Are you having fun?" And I said, "I like him so much." And she's like, "Well, I'm really glad."
Yeah, that's positive.
But that, a week alone was we hadn't had that. So I do. He's just a nice guy.
All right, so you guys get married, and he said he quit Walmart. So he
quit Walmart. He took his test, got licensed to be a stockbroker.
That's right.
And then a financial planner. He went on and on. He worked for a brokerage for a while, and then ended up working at a bank. And that's like his whole career was banking.
Yeah, and that whole process for him was how long? Like the licensing and the broker, how long was that?
Oh, like
process?
within the first year that we were married.
Okay, and you're still doing interior design during this time? Okay, how long did you do that?
I still keep a client now and then.
Wow, you still to this day?
Like maybe one client at a time.
All right, so this was your 26, 27, 28, right in this area? All right. Anything other serious happen between those times? You raising a child, did you have kids of your own? Did you not have kids of your own? When did that happen?
We lost a couple babies. We had 2 girls.
2 girls. Okay, what's the time difference
there's
between
10
his
years.
youngest son?
Yeah, there's 10 years between Steven, our oldest, and our youngest.
Wow.
So there's 7 years between the first 2, and then I thought we would have babies right away, and we lost babies. So I had cancer. I had ovarian cancer when the baby was 3.
Hold on. You just don't get to just say that. Hold on. So your first baby was born, and then you got ovarian cancer 3 years later?
No, after our last baby was born.
Okay, so the time frame between the oldest and youngest is 10 years, so that makes the oldest daughter 3. All right. So this puts you in your mid to late 30s?
Yeah, I was 33, and I just didn't feel right. And I went, to my doctor. I never felt right. I always had issues. And I went to the doctor and just for my yearly exam, and he said that everything was fine.
And this is at 33? Okay.
And then I wanted to go to camp with my kids, so I had to have a tetanus shot. So I went to a brand new doctor that I'd never been to.
Yeah.
And he ended up being our family doctor for many years. But he said, "How do you feel? Your color is a little off." And I said, I don't feel well. And I told him, I said, I feel like, heavy in my abdomen. And I said, I just went to my doctor, though. And he said, everything's fine. And he said, "Hey, let's do an ultrasound." And he did an ultrasound, did blood work, and I had cancer in my ovary.
Holy smokes.
It was like a complete miracle that, they removed it, and I've been fine ever since.
Wait a minute. How long was that process? Like from the time they found it till the time you went to surgery?
Very, like just a couple, weeks, yeah.
Wow.
And at that time, Bob had lost his first wife to cancer.
Yeah, so he's freaking out.
And I just told someone this yesterday that I really I said God wouldn't do this to him. Like, I don't have cancer. Like, who marries two wives that have cancer?
Yeah.
And it was definitely, it was a faith build. You know, it was a miracle. It was just a miracle that they found it. It was a miracle the way that I never had to have chemotherapy because of how it was removed. It just the whole thing.
How did they remove it? Like,
well, I was getting ready to have surgery, and they were just kind of like, you know, scope and suck it out.
Yep.
And my surgeon, who was a woman, she came in and she said, I have no reason, like no medical reason to tell you that we should open you up.
wow.
But she said, I really feel like we should open you up and remove your ovaries.
Wow.
Both ovaries. And it was actually the ovary, the one that had the cancer in it.
Mm-hmm.
Then there was a second ovary. That second ovary is the one that had cancer in it.
No kidding.
And so they opened me up, and I had a complete hysterectomy, and then later found out if they had just done what they were going to do, the cancer would have spread, or that ovary would have stayed with cancer in it. So
no. How did this wasn't even your surgeon, or was your surgeon?
it was not my family doctor. His name is Anthony Darros, and he was amazing. But for years I've talked to him about, like, how did you know at that time in our house?
You're saying it like it's nothing, but that feels like something.
It's huge.
Yeah.
Like my whole life, I was supposed to be dead. Like when I was born, they told my parents I was going to be born dead. So
What?
my whole life, God has done things like this.
Wait a minute, you can't just throw that out there. What was the thing?
Like cords wrapped around my neck, and they came out and they told my dad that I hadn't had oxygen for so long that it was me or my mom.
Oh,
that was
wow.
gonna live. And he said, just
Oh my gosh.
the baby. And so my mom's told me my whole life that my life is a miracle. And that like my whole life, my parents have said, that God's got a purpose for you.
Yeah.
So I kind of feel like at that time, like when I was 33, God was just renewing that. Like, I've got a purpose for you.
No
and,
kidding.
Strengthening. Bob wasn't really raised in a faith, family. So he's like the real miracle. The fact that he has like completely surrendered his life to serving others and for the Lord is just, it's just a miracle.
And my favorite thing about him, he's really quiet. But like when he says stuff, everybody's quiet. I don't know if you've ever watched that about him, but when he starts to speak, everybody stops talking because he's not going to speak unless he has something exactly that he wants to say. Yeah. And because I'm that way, like we get in here and I'm yakking on like a monkey in a tree, right? But you get me in the other places and I'm just quiet. I'm listening and paying attention. And that's why when the first time when him and I met, and it was just like, well, this is this and this is this. And he's like, yep, okay. I'll get to high-low, we'll move the things. I'm like, great, we'll do this thing. And it was great. And you're like, wow.
You two are in sync.
You guys were like, I'm like, yeah, isn't that how this is supposed to work? And it was just nice to meet, I thought I was an alien. So it was like, oh, there's two of us. All right.
Aww.
Well, it's just, get it done. Okay, now what do you need? Let's get the work done, then let's talk. And that's how my mind works.
That is how so I drive him crazy every day.
Yeah, and, opposites attract. And,
yeah.
So at 33, how long was the recovery for that surgery?
It was a couple months. It was tough.
I bet. And then like the checkups and all that, I imagine. Is that something you had?
I don't have to anymore. It's been so many years. But I did have to go and have blood work and check. And I was always worried because I didn't have chemo. I was thankful I didn't have chemo, but I always thought, what if it spread or what if?
Yeah.
And then like 2 years later, I went to the doctor and I had a spot on my something.
Oh,
I don't know. And they went and they checked it.
Yeah.
And it was fine.
No kidding.
So they did like staging. They checked all of my different organs. So I've been fine all this.
No kidding.
All these years. Yep.
Yeah, all 2 years since 33, right?
Yeah.
No, that's amazing. Well, this is a great place to take a break. We are going to finish your story on our next time. So you guys will have to check in and find the backside of Center of Hope and how they got there from age 33. I want to thank you so much for coming in. I appreciate everything you guys are doing. Please check out Fenton centerofhope.org. And if you know someone that is struggling and needs help with food or many other things, tell them to go to that website and check them out. One of our best partners. I appreciate you. Thanks so much for Spiritual Warfare Unit. Please like, share, and subscribe. Help us, help others, help you. Have a great day. Do you have a nonprofit in your area that's doing a lot of work that people should know about? Feel free to contact Spiritual Warfare Unit at 810-715-9319, and we would love to have them on to see what good they're doing in the community and find out their story. Thank you so much.